Space, the final frontier. These are the podcasts of the Starfleet Night Shift, our continuing mission to discuss Strange New Worlds, TM, to review Star Trek in all its iterations, to boldly talk about Trek we've all seen before.
Before. Was that the best echo we've done so far? I think
so.
That's really good. Put a lot into that. What's up, everyone? It is the Night Shift, back with another podcast. It is the Halloween edition of the podcast. We will not be live again until after Halloween, so we are here in costume, looking fabulous, ready to talk Trek in all things spooky. Before we get started, I definitely want to shout out all of our Ko-Fi supporters. Thank you guys. Null Point Origin, Maddox, the top tier supporters. We love you guys. Maple Mesmer, Zang, Dalindra, Damon, Venwick, Sahana, Energy, Evan, Season, Flying Triangle, and Avatar Continuum. I love you guys. Great to have you with us. We're going to kick this off right almost now. There we go. What's up, everyone? Captain Merrick in the upper right-hand corner here. Upper left-hand corner, Nurse Chapel at a Ren Fair. Jennifer.
Excuse me, Strange New Worlds.
I was Strange New Worlds. Yeah, and then in the bottom right, he is Groot. What more needs to be said? His responses are going to be just a little limited today, so don't expect too much from from Groot. He is Groot. He may remind you that he is Groot periodically throughout the discussion tonight. So, welcome, everyone. Glad to have you guys here. I really wanted to hear Azure say, "I am Groot." Come on, do it. No, he does. Maybe, I don't think he can hear us. There it is. Do you see? He's Groot. I was trying to talk him into keeping that on the entire time, but unfortunately, I think the headphones are complicated. So it gets a little tough. Anyway, what's up, everyone? I'm so glad you guys are here. Last Splash, you are first, my friend. Shy Padge, good to see you, buddy. Cardi, I love you so much. Atomic Tree Dude, Venwick, what's up, man? Damon, good to see you. When did Groot become an ensign? He's lieutenant commander at least. Anyway, anyone who's watching this on YouTube in the future, we are streaming this live on Twitch, twitch.tv/MerrickTV. We stream it live on Twitch every single week, and then we upload it to YouTube later. So if you guys catch this late, we're glad to have you here. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, do all that YouTube-y stuff. Anyway, glad you guys are here. This is the Halloween episode, and this is, in fact, the Halloween episode behind us in Star Trek Online. Normally, we sit in the Floor 47 mezzanine at Earth Space Dock, but no, this week, we're in Cat's Paw, which is the Star Trek Halloween-themed event that they've been doing in Star Trek Online, completely based off of the original series episode, Cat's Paw, season 2, episode 7. I want to say back in the 60s, 1967 or something like that. Very, very old school. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff Trek tonight, guys. We got a lot of things to cover. We got lots of news that we're excited to explore. We want to talk a little bit about Halloween and spooky stuff that goes on in the realm of Trek. There's some big stuff coming down the pipeline, so we'll do that. Also, a review of Lower Decks, the season finale that happened that we just streamed 2 days ago on Thursday in the Discord. It was amazing, and probably my favorite thing, our friend Azure actually watched his very first episode of the original series from top to bottom.
Which was Cat's Paw.
Which was Cat's Paw.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah, I'd had it a little bit spoiled by playing STO. No, I'm kidding.
I guess you would, right? It would be a little bit spoiled.
I mean...
Not really.
No?
No, I mean,
I didn't really know what was going on from the... The TFO is great if you know what's going on, but it doesn't really ruin the story.
That's right. It doesn't give you the story itself, but if you do know the story, I think it has a lot of cool throwbacks, so you kind of get some extra stuff from that, which is cool. So you'll notice this is Star Trek, but there are sort of ghosts floating around. We're in like a haunted castle. This actually was the setting of the original series episode Cat's Paw, which was like a horror movie. So in case you guys haven't seen it, it's very old. It's very dated. It's kind of a meme even in the realm of TOS episodes. There's a lot of bloopers that come from that episode. There's a lot of goofs, things that were sort of weird. A good example of that, Azure, is do you remember the three witches at the beginning? They were like, Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be headless, floating heads. They were supposed to be wearing black turtlenecks that hid everything except for their face. Except even in the 60s, it didn't work at all. The actors were told to turn the corner and react to the fact that there were three floating heads yelling at them. And they went, and then it turns out it's just like three dorky guys sitting there in turtlenecks, which is basically what everyone at home sees. And the remastered version is even worse because it's even clearer, of course. So that's just one of the many sort of memes that are going on. But in the spirit of Halloween, I just want to totally point out Juniper's costume.
Oh,
if you guys,
thank you.
Yeah, if you guys have not watched Strange New Worlds.
To that image, Gene.
Yeah, do we have that? Where
It's
is
in
that?
the Discord chat.
Yeah,
Wait.
but I mean, we should post the link.
No, I got it. Wha-bam! This is Nurse Chapel in Strange New Worlds, the new Star Trek show that is currently being aired on CBS or on Paramount Plus, excuse me. And I was like, I'm gonna dress up in my captain's costume. Like, you guys see this? I actually got the captain's jacket. And I was like, Jennifer, what are you going to do? She's like, I have an idea. She went to a closet and got literally the Renaissance Fair outfit that she wears to the Red Fair and was like, is this not the same thing? I was like, that's so close. It's close enough. You got it. Nailed it.
Yes, thank you.
And I forgot that this was a Star Trek podcast and brought a costume from years ago that I made.
Excellent. I believe you. That sounds believable to me. Mm-hmm. Falkirk says, what was the proper way to handle the Tuvix situation? Oh my God.
Oh, bringing out the big question.
What we're starting with? That was
Way to drop a bomb, Falkirk. That's an entire podcast by itself. Okay. Listen, this podcast or this particular episode is going to be a little bit more freeform. We have a lot of topics to go down. I don't mind touching this one. I like interacting with the stream. Falkirk, love you, buddy. Can we just go around and say what you would do? What would you have done if you were Janeway? Jenny?
Oh, geez.
Everyone's too afraid to answer this. I'm going to say it right now. Captain Janeway is awesome. She straight up murdered Tuvix, which is so uncool. It's maybe the craziest thing that she's ever done in the history of Star Trek Voyager. It was insane to me.
No. I get your point.
It was willful murder.
Because think about it.
Good.
Okay, there's two reasons I have, two opposing arguments for that. One was that the original two lives were not considered lost, like, because it was sort of this medical issue that they were trying to reverse the whole time. So it kind of came in with a certain like lens. And then even if you reject that portion, you can go back to the fact that it's like, the many versus the one, right? And it's two lives versus one life. So there's that argument as well.
Okay.
I get it. 2 lives, 2 Vix.
Oh man, this is meta now. So Jennifer, you think that they did the right thing? She did the right thing.
I think it would have been the choice that I would have made. I don't know if I would have made it in exactly the same way as she made it. But I think part of the thing with her character, which actually I really appreciated the way they did that, it was very realistic in the sense that she almost had to like steel herself, and she seemed angry, and you think like, oh, she was angry and like mean or cruel, but I think she was just so angry at having to make that decision.
Okay, I have many responses to that, but I'm really excited to hear what Azure has to say. But what do you think?
So, one, I think the episode, just to give it credit where credit is due, does a really good job of, they don't resolve whether it's right or wrong, and I love that. And they do this in a way in Voyager that, as I'm rewatching right now, embarrassingly, I'm already on season 7.
Of what?
Voyager. I don't want to talk about it. I've had a lot of.
How is that even physically possible, Azure Rogue? That makes no sense.
There's roughly 24 episodes in a season. There's roughly 24 hours in a day.
I hope that you guys on stream and on YouTube are tracking over the last several episodes. If you go look
back the last couple episodes, I've been basically going through like a series between each one.
Yeah, what his Star Trek arc is like in a regular basis.
I mean, we watch Star Trek on a very regular basis and don't manage that.
No, I mean, I'm not joking. It's literally been on in the background nearly all day, every day, except like the few hours I've been sleeping. But
oh my God, it's amazing.
but like I think they do this in a great way in a couple of episodes, or in a bunch of episodes, and I think this one's really great in that they present both sides of the argument. They don't tell you what's right or wrong. They just tell you what ended up happening. And obviously Janeway has the final say in this case because
correct.
Tuvix tries to make it. And again, big warning for everyone. This is Voyager spoilers. We're going to talk about details of the episode.
All Star Trek spoilers all the time on this podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
We just need to put that up there.
After last week freaking someone out, I wanted to give that warning. Like Tuvix tries to make his defense, like, right? He like says, like, are you all just going to watch her commit murder? I forget if he actually uses the term murder, but he says something similar, like taking a life, whatever. Yeah. And I think it's great that they bring up both points of view because I think both are valid. But if I were Janeway, I would have done, and again, I agree with Jennifer. I might not have done it exactly the way she did, but I do agree. I also agree with Jennifer. I like the fact that she was angry about this. Like, it's not that she was angry at him. It's not that she was angry or whatever. This is something, as a captain, you've got to make this decision. And it doesn't matter if you even like it or not. You just have to do what you think is best. And I think had she left Tuvix, so you say she straight up murdered Tuvix, and it's hard to argue against that because Tuvix ceased to exist because of what she did.
Yeah.
And he did, and the doctor even says, like, I can't do this because he objects. I'm a doctor. I can't do this to
absolutely.
a patient.
Yep.
But had she left him, she would have essentially murdered Tuvok and Neelix as individuals. Right? They're different. It's not like they both exist separately in Tuvix. Like, he has their combined experiences, but he's a different person. And I think she was right to put him back. And I've seen in chat, people have said this. People have said it in the Discord. Like, why not just recreate both of them and leave Tuvix? But I think for this episode to be interesting, you can't have that as an option.
Inferring that it was not possible. Yeah,
right.
Because that was the only way that this could be a thing. So
that's the thing.
Hold on. I've been patiently waiting to condemn Janeway's murder of Tuvix. So I agree. That's true, except I think that the one real important level of nuance here is that to me, and I think to Tuvix and people that are on this side of the argument, what Azure said is the crux of it was that that it would be murdering Tuvok and Neelix as individuals. Now, for me, that already happened. At that state, it was done. Those individuals were murdered. They were gone. Now, just because you could bring them back is a different thing. The fact that they were gone and a new being now existed that was saying, please, please don't kill me. To me, the prime directive would be like, nope, that's it. Like, you can't, like, yes, very unfortunate that that's true. And if it didn't harm anything, we would bring them back. And we come across this in Star Trek constantly. We're like, we could do this good thing, but it would harm an anthill. So we can't do that. This is literally a sentient person who is literally begging not to be killed. And then it's like, well, but we do want to save those other two people. They're not being represented. But I think in any other Star Trek thing, if members of Starfleet had gone off to try to rescue somebody and they died and one other person lived and then they had the option to kill that person to bring those other two people back, the answer would always be no. Uniformly be no. So I really truly think that Janeway broke some laws there, and I think the real crux, the real nail in the coffin, I'm so sorry, Tuvix. The real nail in the coffin there is the doctor who's absolutely by the book, who's like, no, I listen, if you're gonna do it, you can do it, but I can't. I can't do this.
Can I throw a monkey wrench into this? Because these were two genetic encodings combined, right? Like that was what they explained it as, right? I just want to get this right before I start.
Yeah, so it was, I forget the term they use, symbiogenesis. It was. They merged the genetic codes from the two to make a new. Yeah,
I like how he reacted too.
So they merged the genetic codes of the two. Now, couldn't it be?
Which they didn't do. It happened.
Yes, but I have a question.
That's important.
Couldn't it be argued though that Tuvix and the two-part, Tuvix as well as the duo of
Neelix
and Tuvok are the same. So by killing one or the other, it's not actually
then you
causing
already
the other not to exist.
No, because you're already falling on that double-edged sword. You're falling on the double-edged sword because if they are one and the same, then they are asking not to have this done. If they're the same,
but
then Tuvix, who is the both of them, is saying please don't, which means that's
But what if like you could like argue this as like three different personalities, and one of the personalities is wanting to remain that personality, but the other two personalities are not getting to speak their thought processes, but it's all the same entity.
And Janeway kind of gives voice to that argument, right? She says,
she does
who speaks for Tuvok, who speaks for Neelix here?
And Tuvix responds and says, I do. I have their memories. I have their personalities. I am them both. And we like where we're at. It's basically what,
Which I think is disingenuous, right?
Yeah, because they are different. Exactly, because they are different. So as the individual selves, that would not be their response.
But so I want to jump back, and I'm enjoying this debate. Merrick, you brought up
transporters.
Please.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, technically, we are talking about a transporter.
We are. This is a transporter.
No, but you had said, I forget the exact phrase you used, but you said something, you referenced, you said Prime Directive, but you were talking about just Starfleet's general order.
Not the Prime Directive itself.
Not interfere with like life as it's developed.
Yeah.
But
just Starfleet
one exception that has been constantly made for that, and accepted by Starfleet, I think, generally, is you can interfere if it's to reverse some other thing that's been caused by Starfleet. Like if Starfleet messed up a civilization, you can go in to try to correct the mistakes you made, kind of thing.
That's a good
point. Like undue damage.
So in this case,
and I agree, Tuvix was not created on purpose. This was an accident. Neelix and Tuvok are gone. But I think if you have the chance to bring them back, I don't think it's the same as if you found a person and tried to split them into two people. Like you found them as one person, kind of thing.
I see what you mean.
Or if you replaced one for another, like the argument of, let's replace this one person to save these other two people, and they have nothing to do with each other.
I get all of that, and I'm totally with it if he was turned into a rock. But because he was turned into a person who is absolutely a sentient being, who is literally saying, I don't want this, I will cease to exist.
Wait,
hold on. If you are saying, this is really important, though. If you're saying that the two people that were combined are not able to speak, and that Tuvok or Tuvix does not represent their perspective, that means that they're gone, and that means that if they are separated, then Tuvix, in that same line of argument, no longer exists, and his perspectives are not healthily split into the other two. He's also gone and can't have his perspective given. I think that means that his is the one, like that. Whatever it is, it was an accident that caused it, and then an intentional design to have one person cease to exist who is actively begging you not to have their life ended. I can't get behind that, guys.
So what you're saying is that this new Tuvix has a brand new soul that's not connected to Tuvok or Neelix.
Yes, but I thought that's also what you were saying. I was continuing that line of logic there because you were saying.
Oh, I had actually also thought that's what Jennifer.
Yeah, because otherwise Tuvix is representing the perspective of the other two guys. You have to pick one. He's either representing it and he's someone brand new, or he's someone brand new. He's either representing it because he's a combination of the two, or he's an entirely new being, and you can't pick both to fit the argument. I think that's what it comes down to. And the doctor's on my side. Robert Picardo, where are you? I summoned you.
That is the one argument you've made that's swaying me a little bit, is I don't want to disagree with Robert Picardo. The man is amazing.
The man is amazing. He's a treasure, and we love him.
But okay, so let me propose an alternate scenario and just see how you personally would respond, Merrick, as if you're a captain.
Yes.
So let's say
I am a captain.
That's true. I see it right there.
Do you not see my pips?
So remember when Tom Riker was created?
Yes.
What if instead of just being another Will Riker that was stranded on the planet, it had like split Will Riker in two, and he had. You can't say all of his attributes because it wouldn't make a ton of sense. But let's say like
it was
he lost half his memories, he lost half his abilities, he lost half his ability to perform his role. Both of them they split their memories, they split their abilities. Neither one of them can really live a full and complete life that Will Riker would have had.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the option to recombine them, but neither one of them were comfortable. Let's not go Tuvix level of like begging not to be merged, but they were both like, I don't want to go back. Like, I want to be my own person. I don't want to share this with that other person. Would you recombine them, or would you leave them separate?
So that's tough, because in that argument, and it would really go into the specifics that we have not clarified of like how those two people, like what they have lost, because if they really are half the memories, half the abilities, half the capability, then they are almost I would almost consider them unable to answer that question successfully. Like you could say that they are incapable of giving a sound decision about that, and as a captain who watched it happen, you could have an argument to make that sort of decision. The problem with Tuvix is
totally fair, kind of like how Janeway makes the decision for Seven to like restore her humanity.
Oh, that is an excellent example that never comes up in this debate, but yes, oh my god, that's a great example, because she is like, if I'm an individual, then F you, leave me on the next planet. I want to go back to the Borg. Like, that's a whole ass thing that happens in Voyager that I hadn't really thought about until the very last time I watched it. I was like, Janeway really crosses some lines, man. Like, she's for sure, there's the right way, there's the wrong way, and then there's the Janeway. And that is legitimately like, that's a meme, but it's also like straight up true. I think that she really makes her own morality code. And I think that's part of like, it's part of the show. They're out in the Delta Quadrant. There's no one to check with. She doesn't get to call and ask Starfleet, right? That's the thing. She has to make those decisions.
Yeah, but I think when she does make those decisions, there's one thread that goes through her decisions that when there is a hard decision to make, she kind of falls back on this. And that decision is based off of her promise to get everyone on that crew home. And by not...
Which doesn't include Seven.
But it does include putting Tuvix back into, splitting him again, because she promised to get Tuvok home.
Listen, I'm on board. It's sad that they're gone, and it would be a terrible tragedy if that were the case. The problem is that there's literally a dude, and they make it so much worse because they have him not only wear the uniform, pick up the responsibilities,
like people,
but then goes and makes friends. Him. Everyone likes him more than they like Tuvok or Neelix. Kes is complicated because she likes them both. But by the end of that episode, as you just rewatched it, by the end of that episode, she's like down with it, dude. They may even start dating. I mean, she was like, that was where that was headed. I'm just saying, it was headed that direction.
I agree, but I just mean like, I did like her point where like, if I had lost Neelix, Tuvok would guide me through this, and if I had lost Tuvok, Neelix would be the first person to like help me. And now I feel like I've lost them both.
That's a great line. That's a great scene. In fact, I thought that was a good episode.
I'm not saying we even need to get to an absolute answer here. I think just having the various viewpoints is interesting, because I still stand by. I think Janeway did the right thing, but I can absolutely see the counter argument, and I don't even disagree with it. Like, I think the points you're making are correct.
But it's tough.
Like, you ended a life to restore something to its previous state.
And not even one in a coma that like you have to make the decision for him. Like one that's sitting there going, please don't kill me. I don't want to die. That's actually the hardest part. So I want to say, Azure, I completely agree with you. I think there's no right answer to it. And that's actually what makes it a good episode, right? Because if there was, those are the episodes. Think through Star Trek. There's a bunch of episodes like that. In fact, I think it was Hunting that when I brought up the Prime Directive, which was incorrect, he said like, like the Prime Directive is individually interpreted all the time. I think what is actually the case is that the Prime Directive is the Prime Directive. We know what it is, but it is individually decided to be ignored for the greater good, right? I think it's those moments. Like, it's not like Captain Picard knew or didn't know that going against Wesley Crusher falling in flowers being a death sentence, was against the Prime Directive to save him. He knew that. Like, they always know it.
He mentions it because he says, like, I forget if the being in space ever got a name, but those people's god. Yeah. Are they going to judge us if we break our own rule to save him?
Exactly, which is that the real crux of that whole problem. And I think a lot of those episodes, like another one of my very favorites that is totally up to interpretation, I change my mind about all the time, is the episode in Deep Space Nine when they come across the planet of a whole evolution of families that they had deposited in the past.
Yes, that's
that episode. It is heart-wrenching, and there's no right answer to that, and everyone has their own perspective, and there's so many good points being made about that. But that episode is so good because you can debate it forever. And that's the same thing about Tuvix.
You even get to see someone change their minds on the screen with O'Brien.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. And that is such that whole experience, I think, is like perfectly encapsulated in O'Brien, right? In his journey through that whole thing. Like, he is the most resistant, and he finally kind of turns at the end. Everybody kind of turns at the end. He's the last holdout. And then the whole thing is sort of made, the decision is made by somebody else. But Tuvix in particular is just painful, because while that is academically fascinating, right? And you could be sad at the end, like, oh, all those people gone, all those children that we got to see, that we know and like now, like they're never going to have their lives. And you can think to yourself, well, there's a lot of people, there are generations of people that got to live lives regardless, full lives, beginning, end, all that. And maybe like that's still okay. They got to live those lives and then they're gone. Then there's like the nuance of like, what about their soul? And Kira's wrestling with the prophets and like this whole thing is a big deal. The problem with Tuvix is that you spend a whole episode feeling really uncomfortable. I mean, like for the last 20 minutes of that show, right? These episodes are only like 40 something minutes long. 20 minutes of like agony. Oh, they make you fall in love with them. And the actor, can we just give credit to the Tuvix actor? I should have looked it up if I didn't know we were going to talk about this.
I actually looked him up the other day. I forget. Because I was wondering if he was another one of those stories of like a celebrity, or not a celebrity, but like someone who had really wanted to be on Trek or something, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, I don't know who it is, and I don't think I've ever looked it up. Does anybody know who that is? It was really good. I just thought he did such a good job.
I just re-looked it up, so I'm going to spoil it. But it was Tom Wright.
Tom Wright. Okay, kudos.
That name particularly, but
I don't either. But don't you feel like he just very accurately embodied both Neelix and Tuvok, which is probably
so good. Like, can you imagine?
Hardest thing to do.
He came onto a show having not been on it ever.
Yeah.
And did such a good job doing both, like a nice blend of Tuvok and Neelix.
I really felt like they were both perfectly represented, and then acted so well because he was supposed to be disarming. And like the situation was alarming, then he as a character was disarming, and then he was supposed to make you, the audience, fall in love with him so that it was really hard at the end to make that decision. And that is exactly what happened. That is one episode that I almost skip. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Every time I get to that, I'm like, I need to check in with myself. Am I at a point today, right now? Can I sit through the next 47 minutes of watching Tuvix be willfully murdered?
Yeah, but you brought up an interesting point. You said that he was incredibly likable and disarming, and spent the whole episode making you like him. So I'm wondering, like, if that character was disagreeable and nobody liked him, but he was still asking the same thing, would that feel so gut-wrenching?
I think it's important for the overall. And I
think that's worth it to think about, because, like you said, with the other episode,
morality is the same, but the audience experiences it differently.
Well, I think exactly, and I think that does affect it. How you feel does somewhat affect your decisions, even based on morality. So, that episode with Deep Space Nine, that's on a much grander scale. Those are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives, and yet somehow that is more simple and less.
8,000 people.
8,000 lives versus Tuvix. So, but it's because Tuvix is likable and personable, and you experience something one-on-one with him. But I feel like if you're okay with the Deep Space Nine episode, reverting that entire civilization.
Whoa. No, hold on. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not okay with the episode. Every time I watch that episode, I feel slightly differently about it. I have not settled on a place with that one. That one is tough.
And even if you're not okay with that, you really only have to be mad at
Odo.
Future past Odo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
That was made by a single person.
They're just going to do this duplication thing, and if it fails, we end up back here.
Yes. To your point, Jennifer, I would like to think that him being a jerk would not change the moral dilemma for me. I would say that the morality would be the same. The difficult decision would be the same, with the same pros and cons on either side. But but the decision being made in the way that I think is probably wrong might be easier to swallow, and that that does suck. That's the human condition, I think. I guess we're wired to feel that way about it.
So there's an episode that I literally just watched earlier today in season 7 that I think has the cool, we present both sides of the argument. We don't tell you what's right or wrong. We just tell you what happens kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Do you have another example of that?
I can't think of the name of the episode, but it's the one where Voyager finds a ship in distress. I forget what's exactly wrong. They beam all the passengers on board, and it turns out it was a prisoner transport, and it's men who are supposed to be executed.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got the one guy who befriends Neelix, who's
and
Neelix is like, "What'd you do?" And he's like, "I killed a man." And Neelix is like, "What?" Or like, "Yeah." Or no, he says, "You're wondering what I did." And Neelix says, "You killed a man." And he says, "Well, I'm Benkari," or whatever the race actually is.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
a
you
tough
got the
one,
other
too.
guy who's completely violent, but the doctor finds like something wrong in the structure of his brain, and they use Seven's nanobots nano
probes.
To correct the.
And then they say, in a sense, he's a new person. He's not the person he was before.
And that's what they try to argue for the courts, but they don't care.
Well, so yeah. Well, originally there's
true.
The escort guy is like, you haven't changed, blah blah blah. But then it turns out he realizes he has, and they argue for the family.
I feel like that argument's even harder, though. That one I feel really strongly about, because the whole point of incarcerating someone or giving the death penalty is to remove the dangerous element from the society.
And so that's actually kind of why I bring it up, is because the interesting thing here is like that society doesn't use the death penalty for that reason. They use it because the victims get to choose what happens.
That's what I was going to say. It was entirely left up to the victim's family as a form of atonement or like relief from revenge, basically. And so they do try to argue it. They do try to give that point that you made to the family, and the family rejects it. And that one is tough too, because that actor also does a really good job. He does a really good job. He's so likable, and he really convinces you by the end. You feel so bad for him, man. That's a tough one too.
I don't know if you remember it. Again, I have the advantage of having watched it 12 hours ago.
Hacks.
But at the very end, he's in the astrometrics lab with Seven, and they're looking at constellations that he's been telling her about, that he's and she's talking about like, oh, Voyager could bring you with us, maybe, like we could talk to Captain Janeway, blah blah blah.
Oh yeah.
And then Janeway, the prison escort dude, and I don't know, probably Tuvok, walk in, and he finds out that his like appeal was rejected. The family doesn't want to hear about it. And he just said, he looks at Seven and he says, and she's like looking away, because she's been saying like,
it mirrors
I killed thousands of people and didn't get punished, but this guy's gonna die. And so she looks away from him and like won't meet his eye, and he puts his hand on her shoulder and says, "You're the only person who ever looked at me without seeing or showing fear. Like, can you look?" And asks her to look at him one more time. Just such a like moving episode.
It is, and don't you think that episode mirrors Roga Danar?
Oh yeah.
Don't you think? You maybe like not an immediate thing that you would make combination like a comparison between, but kind of, right? Because he's sort of a murderer, but it's sort of not his fault. Like they treated him that way, they made him that way. But that episode from TNG, and I'm sorry that I forgot the name of it, Roga Danar. I can see Asher Googling quickly.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to resist the urge. I Googled it 2 weeks ago. I looked it up for some other reason, and I'm trying
because Roga Danar was set on Lower Decks.
Well, that was a while ago, but no, it was something we talked about 2 weeks ago that I wanted to bring up that episode, and I forgot to.
That episode is a great episode. That's one of the ones with James Cromwell, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
James Cromwell,
he's like the president or whatever, the leader of that planet.
Yeah, the total jerkface leader. Oh, and they were trying to like get into the Federation. I think that was their thing.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they were applying to the Federation, but then like rejected at the end of that episode, right? So that one ended in like a happy way. In fact, the Picard and the Federation go down to the planet, and in the end, they were like, "We're not going to save you," and rejected from joining the Federation. You guys got to solve this yourselves. Good luck. And then basically they end up discovering that if they don't threaten these guys, they're not violent, right? So there was some sort of resolution. But I feel like there's some comparisons to be drawn there between those two episodes. It's fascinating.
I agree. Well, and especially in the sense that it's kind of exploring societal reactions to threats. Right? Because they think of these soldiers as threats. Like, they're incredibly violent. Troy brings up, like, did they even try to, like, decondition them after all this training kind of stuff?
Yeah.
But sorry, I want to go back to, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jennifer, but I obviously did. But you were bringing up the whole idea of one of the, I don't know if you said issues or whatever with this episode, the Voyager one, was the use of capital punishment for people who could effectively be incarcerated. And I think
exactly.
It's a perfectly reasonable thing, and I think that's what makes the episode so powerful. Is like that's what the Federation believes too, right? Like the Federation doesn't use capital punishment.
No, in fact, there's a ton of episodes where they go out of their way to use their future frame of perspective to show that that's something we've evolved beyond. That is a negative thing. Like it makes its political view on this very clear. Star Trek is very against capital punishment.
And certainly, if someone was able to change somebody like the Doctor changed his actual brain to be different, and that was provable, then the argument to even allow that person out into society again is valid.
Right, in the realm of sci-fi, where you could be like, definitely, we saw the cause, right? We know the effect, but we found the cause and we have removed it. So tangibly solved, right? Like not through years of therapy, maybe. You know what I mean? Like we found, there's the switch. It was flipped the wrong way, flicked, and now they're good. No longer medicine.
Well, that's the interesting thing, though, right? Is I would argue that you don't know for sure that what the Doctor did is going to fix this guy. Like, yes, now he feels guilt, and yes, he seems sorrowful, and yes, he even exhibits, like during the little mini prison break, he hands the phaser back to the guard rather than
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's shown lots of evidence, but I'm just saying, I'm not sure you set the guy free right away. I definitely don't support executing him, but
no, therapy probably still. It's a good idea. Right? Somebody even brought up the fact that we should have a therapist on Voyager, and they should have. They should have had one.
Well, but obviously they didn't because their mission was like 2 weeks long originally.
Yeah, it's true.
Probably don't need a therapist on a 150-person ship for 2 weeks.
Even though they're a long-range science vessel, right? Like that's supposed to be like.
But I think that voyage though wasn't supposed to last very long.
No, that's true.
So
that's
if
true.
they went on an actual long science voyage, they might have brought a counselor with them.
That's very fair.
TV facts with a Star Trek fact in chat.
Oh my goodness! What?
Star Trek trivia in the Star Trek universe. Hardened criminals are given red shirts and enlisted into Starfleet in order to avoid capital punishment. That is 10 out of 10 Merrick TV facts. If anyone is new here or from our Star Trek community and doesn't know Merrick TV facts, we have no idea who he is. He's been around here for about 2 years. It could be a she. I have no idea. I just know that we have guessed and been wrong many times, and the views of Merrick TV facts are not necessarily those of Merrick TV. I'm just, okay, and end of rant.
Put it out there.
Just putting it out there. Oh, you know what we should show is... Oh, go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to pull up the meme. I forgot who posted this today. Avatar Continuum posted this. This is the...
the pumpkin one?
Yeah, this is the pumpkin
one. Very appropriate for
the Starfleet pumpkins. The red shirt had a bad day. Basically.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I got a big kick out of that. Okay, go ahead, Ajay.
So I wasn't going to say anything specific. I was going to say we had a brief list of topics that were mostly freeform, and instead we spent this time talking about Tuvix, which I love, and I'm actually really happy that we talked about.
Yep.
Do we want to talk about Cat's Paw and various other creepy, spooky Star Trek episodes?
Yes.
Yes.
Halloween, yeah.
I just want to quickly speak...
recommendations for anyone who wants spooky, well, sort of spooky Star Trek.
Yes, spooky, scary skeletons send shivers down your spine. I just want to quickly go up to some of the chat that was going on. People were discussing whether or not they would make the decision if it was something like your two best friends, and then you would make the decision. There's some people who, I think most people agreed that if it was their friends, they would feel like they owed it to them to make that choice, the same one that Janeway did. I can see that for sure. Maybe if it was me in the captain's chair, it would have been a different or harder decision to make. I do love the Tuvok appreciation in the chat, by the way. I swear, Tuvok does not get enough appreciation. I think he's one of the... I don't want to have my wife literally kill me in my sleep. I think he's one of the best Vulcans ever. I think he's the Vulcanist of all Vulcans. Like he pulls off the Vulcan the best way of anyone.
No, Marek, I can give you that Tuvok is the best Vulcan because Spock is half human. So yes, Tuvok can claim this.
No more murdering.
100% Vulcan.
Listen. Tim Russ is a freaking legend. I love Tim Russ. He is Star Trek royalty. He has been a ton of different things and does them so well. The guy was in a super ultra aggressive Klingon, for example, on Deep Space Nine, and then follows up with
Deep Space Nine.
He's
Mirror Universe Tuvok.
He is Mirror Universe Tuvok. He's been two humans, a Klingon, a Vulcan. He's just been all sorts of things in Star Trek and always does it so well. I think in the 90s, people were like, whoa, I mean, like, we shouldn't be surprised if this is true, but they were like, whoa, a female captain, whoa, a black Vulcan. And he, like, both of those characters in a realm where that was kind of brand new, within 2 seconds, no one was seeing that stuff. They were so good in their roles and just kind of silenced an entire generation that might have thought, wow, that's different. And it was so expertly done. And I think he really was one of the best security chiefs, one of the best characters. And he could actually play this super rigid, more Vulcan, logical Vulcan than almost any other Vulcan ever portrayed. But then also like a super good, like, didn't you love the friendship between him and Janeway? Wasn't that just like a,
absolutely,
like a beautiful thing that's expressed in that show?
I really would argue that he is kind of the ideal.
Yeah, Falkirk he was
Vulcan.
in TNG.
You know, like Sarek, there's some problems there with Spock and right, like
Hunting.
Oh, sorry, I thought. All right. You know, the other Vulcans, they all kind of struggle with different things, but you know, if you look at sort of the Vulcan ideal of what they really try to achieve in their life, Tuvok kind of checks all the boxes.
Well, you also get to see his super cool struggle with emotion in that episode where they're stranded in that planet that's like in the sinkhole in time, space, blah blah blah, with him, Tom, and the Doctor.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one.
He meets. Oh my god, I can't think of her name. I almost said Roz. That's the cat.
There's that girl that's also stranded there, right? That he ends up having like a long relationship with.
Yeah, but like there's flashbacks to him with the Vulcan Master, and he's saying he rejects the idea of like ignoring emotions, blah blah blah.
Yes. Oh my God, Falkirk says when he finally danced. Oh, that was such a good moment too. That was great. And I agree. I think his relationship and the evolution of the relationship with Neelix, which they freaking take their time with, right? Like
they really do.
That friendship. It's like it's Voyager's version of Odo and Quark. Like they take the whole show to make it what it is and never went too far with it. You know what I mean? I actually thought that was one of the greatest things about Deep Space Nine, and we've touched on this before. Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that I think it was Azure last week who brought up an excellent point, which is that in classic Star Trek, when we were talking about the dichotomy between New Trek and Old Trek a couple weeks ago, the thing that made Old Trek, and especially Deep Space Nine, but I think like classic Trek in general, unique, was that it was always relationships first. That a plot could be this big crazy thing, but it was really, the plot was there to evolve the relationships. And one of the greatest things that I think that Deep Space Nine accomplished was never quite going too far with a lot of things. Remember I mentioned last week that they were like, the prophets are just wormhole aliens. There's no magic. They're just whatever. And the more the show went on, the more that became a little bit more complicated. And by the end, 7 years later, they never eliminated the magic. They never actually cleared out that fog of war. You know what I mean? And they never did that either with a lot of the relationships. The relationship between Odo and Quark evolved, but so slowly, so realistically. And the final line between them in the airlock as they're leaving is like, "You're gonna miss me," and he's like, "No." Like,
I love that.
And then at the end, he goes, and Kira feels like I need to apologize for him, right? He goes, no, he's just having this thing, like it's not the way he feels. He goes, "I don't know what you're talking about. That man loves me." It's written all over his back.
So good.
It's so good.
But real quick, before we get too far away, because I want to give credit for this to Tim Russ.
Yes.
Unlike TNG, it's actually pretty hard to find more than like one Voyager bloopers video. But in it are some hilarious moments from Tim Russ. There's one where he clearly
farted a lot on stream.
And he flopped around on his security console for like 30 seconds while you could just hear the cast breaking into laughter.
Yes, man.
There's also, do you remember that episode?
When he walked onto the bridge because he forgot his clothes?
That one's also...
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
But there's that episode where he crashes on a planet and like the other Starfleet person in the shuttle dies, which is not even a name that you would recognize. It's a minor character. But there's like the children on the planet who are scared.
It's a rando that dies. Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, he ends up being the caretaker of those children. Right? Yeah.
In the blooper, it's where they're investigating the cave that the kids are all afraid of. And you see Tim Russ start walking towards the cave and just yells, "Bleep, I ain't going in that cave," and just sprints away. And it's just so funny. Like the guy seems like a hilarious person to work with for playing a Vulcan.
Yeah, and he's actually, it's the phrase I use all the time, right? He's a friend to the franchise. He's a guy who loves Star Trek. He loves being in Star Trek. He loves Star Trek fans. He's been a part of the fandom verse for forever, and he's actually like a super cool guy. And he does a lot. He's done a ton in STO, Star Trek Online. Like people that come and do STO, I love them. I think that's awesome. And he does a lot of video game stuff now. I literally just heard him in like World of Warcraft the other day. Like he does a lot of stuff, and he's awesome.
There's an STO moment that I want to mention, but I think it might be part of one of the story arcs that you and Junie haven't gotten to yet, and it involves Tim Russ, and I don't want to spoil it for you because I think you'll love it. So I'm gonna hold off.
Well, it's okay because it'll be on an STO stream because we're doing the story,
and I'm just very excited because it's another really good just Tim Russ contributing to the franchise moment.
I also like that when we were complimenting Tim Russ as a Vulcan, that Tuvok was one of the greatest Vulcans. Someone, I think it might have been Hunting, said that he also, like, to his credit, also managed to get to the Pon farr without being creepy.
That's true.
Yes, so very true. I feel like there's so many things that he like does and like advice he gives other people, and I also actually love some of the things that like the scenes with him and Tom Paris too, when Tom and B'Elanna are getting together and they're going to get married and all of that.
Also, I like when you can't forget, Tuvok, I understand you are a Vulcan man, and you have gone without for 7 years about. Paris, please find a way to load a hypospray. That's one of the greatest.
I will give you the sign. Just aim for his behind.
It's a credit to Robert Picardo, really, and that was, of course, one of his daydreams. But just those dynamics, man, it's just so well done. I just think it's so good. Sorry for the singing, guys. It had to happen. But another thing that I really like on that show, and I think he doesn't get a lot of credit, is Vorik, which is the young Vulcan that is also on Voyager. And I was thinking about this the other day.
He's crazy.
Well, no, he has one crazy episode where he tries to rape B'Elanna.
He has like 2 crazy episodes, and he's always been irritable.
No, he's so cool. Are you kidding? Vorik he only has one weirdo episode, and isn't he the same Vulcan that was on the actual Lower Decks from TNG? Is that the same guy?
I don't know.
Is it?
I don't know. I thought there was a Vulcan from TNG. It might have been the same actor. I'm not sure if it's the same character.
It actually, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, the voices sound very similar.
Right?
The one from the actual like Lower Decks episode of TNG.
The Next Generation episode Lower Decks, where there's
the one where he's like reprimanding the guy who's like chanting promotion.
Yeah, which is a great episode and literally started Lower Decks, the animated series. Like that whole perspective was so cool. But I want to give credit to Vorik. Okay, he is representative of something really cool, and I think that Voyager doesn't get talked about a lot, but like the whole thing with Vulcans is that we keep seeing different Vulcans at different stages in their life, and they really go through different things, right? So like as a young human, right, we know that we can relate to young humanity as sort of being reckless, making rash decisions, being too wild, and then sort of tempering it later. Vulcans, in our experience, kind of go the other way, don't they? They sort of start off super rigid. They're the ones that are going to quote regulations to the captain, right, and like try to scold them. We saw that even in TOS with TOS movie with oh god, I'm drawing a blank. So they basically start a little bit rigid and then they loosen up later, right? When they get a little bit more experience, they decide that it's the whole evolution of Spock, where he's like, logic is the beginning of wisdom, right? Not the end. And that's sort of the evolution of the Vulcan mind. And what I really love about Voyager is you're actually seeing something really, really unique when it comes to Vulcans. Vorik is super young. We know that. He goes through the very first Pon farr, his very first Pon farr on Voyager. We know that. He's very young and very inexperienced. He's kind of like a meme. He's like kind of kooky. He has that one episode where he kind of goes crazy. That was the Pon farr episode. But what about that episode we watched the other day where he walks up and goes, we have about 1 hour until we're all about to die. And B'Elanna goes, you just said that like we're reading the weather report. And he goes, well, I thought that we have all this stuff to do, but it wouldn't benefit us in any way to lose our cool. And she goes, lose our cool? where did you hear that? And he goes, it's something I picked up from Tom Paris. And she goes, there's hope for you yet, Vorik, or something like that. He's young and impressionable and really awesome. And then Tuvok, and this is what I love about Tuvok that really never gets discussed. This is Tuvok's second Starfleet career. Tuvok was that super rigid, just like what's her name? Did anyone figure out the name of her? The name of the Vulcan?
I haven't tried, but I was watching chat. I don't think
Jennifer
said it yet.
The Vulcan chick who was played by two different actresses on the original series.
Kirstie
Alley?
Kirstie Allen first or something. What's the name?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Saavik. My God, my brain's finally working. Okay, so Saavik was like, Captain, may I remind you that thrusters only in space dock or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's, she's like that trying to correct the captain. And Spock, the elder Vulcan, is like, don't do that. That's not cool. Now, in Voyager, we're getting sort of the same thing. Vorik is very young and impressionable. We're seeing that side of Vorik, but Tuvok is like heck of old. Nobody talks about this, but he's only a lieutenant. It's kind of weird. And then you realize, and he never really goes into the greatest amount of detail, but this is his second Starfleet career. And when he had his first Starfleet career, what do we see? We see him on the bridge of the Excelsior with Sulu, and he's like spouting regulations to them, right? Like Tuvok is like, no, we can't do that. And he tries to sabotage them from going and changing or charging across the neutral zone to go and help the Enterprise in the movies, right? So
yeah, because they even say like that's bold of you as an ensign to be correcting.
Exactly, but that's sort of like a young Vulcan. Young Vulcans are really like that, and then older Vulcans get a little bit more human, and so we're seeing him as lieutenant being like really buddy with like with Janeway, expressing way amounts of emotion, but we find out he's actually kind of old as far as Vulcans go, and he's only a lieutenant because he's basically like brand new back in Starfleet. It's sort of fascinating, right? His character's a little bit more nuanced, I think, than people think initially.
Although it is interesting, I just want to make one small note about him being a little bit rigid. Is in the episode where he gets his promotion on Voyager. Like Tom and Harry like humiliate him and make jokes about him.
Yes.
Janeway says the first time I met Tuvok, which again could have been years ago because Janeway's a captain. She's been in Starfleet for a while.
Yeah. And I think Janeway was 39 when she started the show.
Okay. She says when I first met Tuvok, he dressed me down in front of a couple of admirals for failing to follow proper something procedures.
Aha.
And then she says, and of course he was right.
Of course he was right.
But I'd like to think that that's from like the end of his first Starfleet career.
Yeah, which would make sense, and we just don't know enough about the time frame. We do know that the movies, we could probably figure out exactly where he was at in the movies, and I think he was an ensign for that particular movie. What movie was that, by the way, Jennifer? Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember.
The Final Frontier. It might be the Final Frontier. Was that the very last one? Yes. Yes, really? Because Sulu was captaining the Excelsior. He left.
And it would be the final one.
It was the Final Frontier. No, the Undiscovered Country. I'm being a dork. It's the Undiscovered Country, which is the last one. So we know where he was at about that time. But anyway, sorry. What a crazy divergence from our actual topic. Maple Mesmer. What's up, Maple?
Listen, we're just hitting an hour now. It's perfect time to start the first topic.
Okay, nice. So we were just talking about Halloween in general and sort of what Halloween or scary things have meant in the realm of Star Trek. That's why we're standing here in Cat's Paw. I just wanted to give a couple of really funny, since Azure, you just watched the actual episode Cat's Paw for the first time in our Discord Halloween watch party that we did on Thursday. A couple of memes about this. First of all, that episode aired for Halloween when it first came out. That was an actual on Halloween episode that came out at the time. So it was sort of weirdly intentional.
But I think we can all agree not necessarily one of the best original series episodes. So
it's the best episode I've seen of the original series.
I was just right.
But that's your true. First episode. So it's interesting
true. Not
to
a high bar to clear.
How you feel, what you thought of it, considering it is the first episode.
Yeah, start your review. What did you think?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a little bit silly and like a little. I actually can't compare to the rest of the original series because again, was my first episode that I've watched all the way through. It was like a little extreme on the goofy side, but I did not think it was a bad episode. Like the sympathetic magic stuff, the references to the old ones. Like I thought it was interesting the way they explored.
Lovecraftian. Did you pick up on that?
I did. But more importantly, what I thought was interesting, well, not more importantly, but the thing I picked up on or attached to most was I liked that they were exploring, like, why is it that these beings thought that this would be something we would think is normal? And Spock goes into the idea of like, this was the 60s, so I don't know. But like, I'd never heard the term racial memory, but this idea of like these persistent memories across cultures and that's what these beings are picking up on and not realizing that it's the subconscious that they're reading. I thought that was a cool theme. And like, that was probably a relatively novel, like, psychological concept at the time in terms of research.
It absolutely was. And I think
Star Trek has been really good about that over the years.
Well, that's what's really interesting about the original series. The concepts that it presents are very fascinating and can hold up to anything from more modern Trek. I think it's just the difficulty comes in with the way it is presented and the fact that it is a bit dated in many ways. But I think those core concepts that you can talk about afterwards are still very present in there, and it really is what set the stage.
Yeah, I mean, so again, obviously there were goofy things. I mean, the witches thing was goofy.
How about the cat with the shadow, the giant cat?
I don't think they used it enough. I would have liked to see more cat shadow.
Same.
But
giant
no,
cat.
I mean, overall, I think the underlying concepts they explored were actually kind of interesting and like deserve credit where credit's due. The execution was maybe a little weird, but
maybe just a little bit.
Anyway, sorry, you had facts or memes or something about it.
I do have a couple of fun facts which are hilarious. One is about the cat. The cat's growl that was used, like the growl from that particular episode, was reworked and repurposed and has been seen in video games as Bowser's roar in games like the original Mario Party and Mario Golf, I think. So you can actually hear that particular meow or roar in a bunch of things. So go back and play Mario Party the original, and you'll actually hear that. There's a couple
when was the original Mario Party? Was that N64? Or was
98. So that was
that N64?
64. Yeah, that's gotta be 64.
I have that.
Dude, bust it out. See if you can hear it, because that's hilarious.
Check it out later. I have the original Mario Party for N64.
And any other OG N64 gamers? Because those were the days, man. GoldenEye, the original Smash,
Ocarina of Time. Hello.
Ooh, Ocarina of Time. Oh,
also Mario Kart 64. I mean, the SNES version was fine too, but
yeah. Oh, Perfect Dark, Hexen. They're all sorts of good games.
Chat full of N64 players. Well,
let's go.
Which is more than I would have expected.
I was the GoldenEye guy. Seriously, dude, that was the game that got us into FPSs, man. There was no like big FPS experience.
Oh, the RCP-90. Wait, I'm gonna get off topic if we get
Oh my god, the RCP-90. My brain hasn't heard that in so many years. That was insane. All right, guys. So we stream Star Trek twice a week. We do STO on Thursday and we do the podcast on Saturday, but we also do gaming throughout the week. So come back later and we'll talk about this. But yeah, so in addition to that, there's a couple of interesting things. First, a sad one. Okay. The guy who played Korob, which was the villain who was,
that was the guy.
The dude with the robe.
The guy.
Yeah, it wasn't really a villain, but you know what I mean. He died within a month of that episode airing in a car crash right after it. So like totally creepy kind of thing. So that was like the last thing he did in terms of media before he passed away, which was very, very sad. And this is funny. That episode, do you remember how they were sort of hazing, or the guy who was in charge, DeSalle, I think is what his name was sort of hazing Chekhov. And Chekhov was like, I know how to do that. I'm not that green, right? He's like all uppity about it. That's actually the very first episode that Chekhov, that Pavel Chekhov or Walter Koenig actually did. That was the very first episode that he was on.
Oh, really?
It was not the first episode that aired with him on it, but it was the very first episode that they filmed. And what is so funny about that is, and I'll try to pull up a picture in a second, is that, do you remember us laughing hysterically like the moment he appeared on screen because of the ridiculous wig that he's wearing?
Yeah.
He was still growing out his hair. Eventually it is his hair, but they got him with his hair too short and they wanted him to look like a beetle. because the Beatles were all the rage at the time, and so they wanted him to have like monkeys or Beatles hair. Yes, and that particular wig, really? It was their first ever episode with him on it, and they gave him this ludicrous wig. I'm gonna try to drag it, figure it out. Yeah, nuclear. I
believe the comment in our Discord chat while we were watching was how many tribbles died for that wig.
That's so good.
I don't remember who said it. Sorry.
Chekhov, cat's paw. Sorry, I'm Googling this. We have to get this image.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Needs to be seen.
Oh, God. You know what's terrible? Is that it always looks bad. Like in any episode, it looks bad. But the one from... I'm having a hard time finding one from Cat's Paw. Oh, wait. No, here we go. There you go. That is just a big hilarious wig that he's wearing. So that's a fun little bit of trivia for you. Also, and this is actually a little bit deeper, is that what is interesting is that when Gene Roddenberry made the show, right, of the original series, Uhura was actually considered to be fourth in command on the ship. Did you know that? She was supposed to be fourth in command, which means that if Kirk and Spock and Bones and especially Scott or whatever are all gone, she's supposed to be in charge of the ship. And they had written that episode with that in mind because all of them are down on the planet. And it was CBS, guys. The studio said, no, you can't put the black woman in charge. That's why Rando DeSalle is in charge of the ship.
Is that really true?
It is true.
I'm not totally surprised by that. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just not surprised because, and again, I can't bring too much of this up because it's going to be a whole topic at some point. But in the DS9 documentary, What We Left Behind, Ira Bear goes through when he's talking about their lack of representation of like LGBT stuff.
Oh yeah.
He's like, we don't get a check mark for that. And they say, and whoever the dude is in the scene with him says, would the studio have let you do that? And he says, well, we failed because we didn't ask or we didn't try.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So in this case, you would give them a check, right? Because they did try.
Yeah, if they tried it and got shut down. At least the production team and the writers and what get a check mark. The studio obviously does not.
Exactly. The studio never does. In addition to that, like even in the initial pilot, right? There was a woman second in command of the ship, and they were not okay with that for sure. I mean, like that was number one, right? Was a woman on the bridge. And in that first episode, they really sort of explore that. They're like, oh, I can't get used to having women on the bridge. They're talking about the yeoman.
They do have that. I forgot that sentence is there.
He says that. He says like, Maple Mesmer, who's been watching the original series with us. By the way, that's what she means by Borgie. We have our Borgies at night sometimes where we watch the original series.
Not knowing that was the term, I was just like, I don't know what that means, and I don't know how to respond.
Yeah. So we've been trying to go through the original series together as a group to make it easier for Maple to get through. And when we watched that episode, it's a little, you get taken aback by overt sexism like that. But they have this interesting exchange that I always thought was very interesting. Like, I want to know how they were going to pan out the character of Majel Barrett, right? Of number one. She didn't even have a name at the time. She was just number one. But it was interesting because they make that comment. He grabs the thing from the yeoman. Oh, okay. Or she walks up to give him that, and she goes, he says, what are you doing on the bridge? And she says, you asked for this report, sir. And he takes the report. He goes, oh yeah, yes, I did. You're right. I'm sorry. And then she leaves the bridge, and he goes, oh God, I just still can't get used to having women on the bridge. And then number one, who is literally second in command, turns around and looks at him, not accusatorily,
right?
not accusatorily, but kind of like hurt, kind of. And he looks at her and goes, "Oh, no, well, you're different. You're very different. You're more like a computer." Or like they call her that several times throughout the episode, like that she's got no emotions and that she's basically just a computer. She's not a woman. And that was a very fascinating perspective.
There are so many odd implications into that about the 60. Like, it's such a archaic thing.
I mean, they've done a couple episodes where they like reverse that in later Star Treks, but one of my favorites is Merrick. Do you remember the DS9 episode where the Cardassians come and they're working on trying to set up the probe on the other side of the wormhole?
The Vipers, the three Vipers.
The three Vipers.
Yes.
With the one woman working with O'Brien. keeps like dismissing him, and she's just like, I forget what phrase she uses, but she leaves it ambiguous. She says like, "Oh, it feels like you wouldn't have the head for this kind of thing." And he's like, "What, humans?" And she's like, "No, men."
No, men. Men don't have a brain for the sciences. This is basically what she ends up saying, which is so good. And I love their interaction. Their whole thing is great because they also have that exchange where like she thinks that he's trying to mate with her.
Oh, right, because he's being like argumentative.
She's like, I am very fertile, and she.
Oh yeah, and he like hits his head or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, he hits his head. And she goes, but I really think you're getting ahead of yourself. It's such a good episode, and those characters are so well done. I actually loved all three of the female Cardassians. In fact, that whole episode was really good.
That episode was brilliant. Yeah, that was really good.
That was one of those like the prophecy episodes. That was when Sisko is actually starting to be affected by the impact of the prophets and the prophecies and his role as the emissary. All of that is sort of actually starting to sink in a little bit of that moment. And so he's starting to actually doubt.
Also, don't you feel like that episode gives you a little insight into the non-military portion of Cardassian society? Because
it does, because you don't see that very much.
Because you don't see that very often
always see
at all.
Gulls.
Exactly. And then so you do see some military Cardassians like change, right? There are a couple of good characters that are going against their government and whatnot. But that's the only time I think you really see true civilians. And you get to see like what that must be in their society. Maybe there really is like a portion of their society that's like, what is this crazy government that we have? They're insane and they kind of spend a lot of their time off the planet and do other things.
I'm trying to remember her name, but there's also Garak's housekeeper.
Right?
She's awesome. What is her name, man?
Something Ela.
Oh.
Mila?
Yeah, that's it. It's got to be.
Yeah, but could she really be considered truly a civilian? I mean, come on.
That's true. She worked for
Enabran Tain.
Yeah, that's different.
Himself.
That's different. No.
Okay, pop quiz, everyone. I've asked it a bunch of times. Enabran Tain himself was the only person to ever say it on Star Trek. What is Julian Bashir's middle name?
Oh, I remember you giving me this answer before, and I still can't think of it.
It's Enabran Tain who like says it like directly just to show how much information he has.
When he shows up and is talking to him.
Yes.
It's the episode where they're trying to like fix the thing in Garak's head, right?
That's right. Yeah, Garak's addiction episode.
Julian.
It's an interesting name. It's a unique
I'm
name.
like covering chat for myself in case someone posts it. Julian.
I would be surprised if they know it without Googling. This is a really obscure one.
I'm also intentionally keeping my hands in front of the cameras so that Merrick doesn't accuse me of Googling.
I know you wouldn't cheat. I never cheat, so I know you won't cheat.
I have always admitted when I've Googled something.
Yeah, me too. There's no fun in it. Why would you cheat? That's just ridiculous. Do you give up? Give
me 10 seconds. We can talk about something else while I think, though.
Game Spree
10
is
seconds
correct.
of me going, Julian is not interesting.
I'm sorry. Game Spree said it in chat, so it's correct. It's The Rock. It is.
I didn't know Julian Bashir was related to Dwayne Johnson. Clearly having the same middle name.
He also plays Sunkats occasionally, so.
Okay, I do give up. I can't think of it. I'm going to be so mad when you say it, though.
Julian Subatoy.
Damn it.
Bashir. And he says it just like he knows how he takes his tea or whatever, Tarkalian tea, I think is what it is. He knows a bunch of information about Bashir when he shows up for that bit of, hunting. There it is. It's Subatoy. Really, really good episode. That's a hard one. I think Garak plays that role so well. Don't you think that particular episode was like a watershed moment for Garak? We almost like Garak more, and as we learn more of his weaknesses, we find out that he's got that whole thing going on, and then like when he is sort of isolated and the whole claustrophobia thing, I just love that character so much.
I agree. I think
yes.
Whatever the thing in his head was called that he's trying to get replaced or get a replacement for that gets Quark in trouble was a great episode. But the claustrophobia thing comes back in what I think is a great moment for both him and a brand new character when he's dealing with his claustrophobia with Ezri when she's first at the station.
That was a hard episode to watch, though.
Oh, but it was so good though, because don't you like that was that whole thing that happened with her and Garak was like defining for them both. I think that's what I mean.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's what really defined and was the whole thing about us keeping Asri. She was thinking about leaving Deep Space Nine, and then that whole thing ended up happening. That was a really great way to introduce that character. And to Azure's point last week, that actress is just phenomenal, stepping into one of the most challenging acting positions I think that we've ever seen in Star Trek, to replace a beloved character after 6 years, to pick up in the middle of an ongoing story which is at its height, at its peak, at its most chaotic, and to seamlessly integrate into that show, and to still have episodes about her and involving her that you're interested in, instead of like, oh my god, get rid of her, who is she even, we need to wrap up the rest of the story. They just did that so well, and I think that particular episode kind of kicked that off,
It did. Well, and again, that's one of the things where you learn another, and I wouldn't even call it a weakness, but like it exposes more about Garak, where like he's having these claustrophobia attacks because yes, he's helping to end the war, but he knows that it's potentially ruining his people because the Dominion isn't going to let Cardassia just escape. Like the Cardassians will fight to the death because the Dominion will make them.
That was such a profound episode. You actually end up seeing Garak's true patriotism, right? Like his actual care, like he genuinely does care, turns out. Like after all this time, you didn't really know, but he really does, and he cares enough that it's like eating him up inside, and he has to kind of stop, So it's really good.
God, there's another episode that it's late in the final season. I forget. It's never mind. I'm not gonna be able to make the reference well enough to even pick it out, but it's just this really poignant moment where it's someone saying, I do this because I love, it's not the Federation, but I love something. And Garak responds, and I love Cardassia.
Oh, yes. And I don't know it either, but I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of like fun Garak moments, I also really like when he is going with the Defiant to the Gamma Quadrant to meet up with the Founders, tries to take over the weapon systems to destroy the planet where the Founders live, and Worf catches them and is like you're screwed, buddy. And they end up getting into a fight, and like Garak holds his own and like gives them a bloody lip kind of thing before he gets beaten, and then Worf goes, "You fight well for a tailor." It's just so good. It's such a moment for Garak. Like he is such an enigma. And I think he portrays that so well throughout that entire show. The guy is so good. And he's written a book, by the way. We've talked about it before. I don't know if we talked about it on podcast, but Andrew Robinson, who plays Elam Garak, loves the character. I mean, he is a fan of the character and of Deep Space Nine and the work. And he actually wrote a book, an actual novel about the life of Garak, basically. Yeah, dude, Game Spree. I haven't read it myself, which is to one of my great failings. Unfortunately, I've not read it, but I hear really good things, and it's high on my list. So if you guys love Garak, you should check it out because it's really good.
Seems a little harsh to call that a great failing on your part.
I mean, for me being me, I like with how much I love Deep Space Nine, I feel like it's an epic fail. But maybe
I love Deep Space Nine, and it took me months to watch the documentary after you told me about it.
Yes, how dare you, sir?
I know that actually was kind of a great failing.
A Stitch in Time, which is also a great name for it. I think it's a great title. Venwick also says one of the greatest lines that Garak ever said. He says, "My dear doctor, they're all true." Bashir says, "Even the lies?" Garak says, "Especially the lies." Can you not see Andrew Robinson's face? Like the smile on his face when he's saying that is so engraved in my brain as I'm reading it. It's just
you
so
can't
perfect.
like not see it as you hear, like even as I hear you read the line.
Yes, right, dude. It's so good. Okay, so we are about an hour and 20 minutes in. Falkirk, you crazy lovable bastard! I cannot believe how much that kicked things off in our podcast. If you guys ever have, please, I wish people would do that every week. I love topics like that.
Who do I have to send Latinum to ask Merrick about the transporter problem?
Okay, that you're all banned.
I mean, to be fair, we were getting very close to the transporter discussion.
I even brought up the Tom Riker thing.
Yes, you did, which is, oh my God, don't even.
And someone in chat did start talking about the concept of souls and cloning with transporters, so.
Yes, we don't go there. So in case you guys don't know, this is a long time debated among all Trekkies across the globe, is a debate about transporters that I'm not even going to say out loud because it's going to start it in chat, and we're not ready for that. So we're not doing that.
Well, please don't bring it up today. I am happy to talk about this if anyone wants to talk in our Discord about it.
Join the Discord and ask a question
for
there.
That discussion, yes.
Discord.
I mean, I also agree
There you
with hunting. Please don't. Please don't discuss that. But you can.
Join our Star Trek Discord if you guys have not already. It is awesome. It is the Star Trek, or it is discord.gg/Star Trek Night Shift, all spelled out. We would love to have you there, and you can always pose discussion topics for us to go over. Before we wrap up.
Also, please, if you are not already subscribed, if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get up to 100 subs so that we can get the vanity URL in YouTube.
That's right.
Super
so
helpful.
if you guys are watching this on YouTube in the future, thank you guys for checking this out. Please smash that like button, subscribe, write a comment. All this stuff is super helpful. We watch it like a hawk. So if you guys ask a question, post a comment, we will respond to it. So thank you guys for watching this in the future. We're not going to wrap up just yet. I want to go over a couple of things. There's a couple other things on the docket.
I have one thing going back to Falkirk's original question that I just want to give credit for that someone brought up in the chat, if I can.
Absolutely. Go.
So someone pointed out, this was really early on in the discussion, and I just didn't think to mention it. I forget the phrase they used, but I'm going to rephrase it slightly. That the Tuvix question is essentially a really classic sort of psychological thought experiment of the trolley problem.
Yes, it is.
It's
yes,
like if you
it
see
is.
a trolley going down the
Railroad,
tracks,
yeah.
and it's going to hit 3 people, and you can pull a switch and divert it to hit 1 person. I mean, the numbers vary. Let's say 2 and 1, because
Who hasn't seen The Good Place?
That's in
Oh,
the good
God,
place.
The Good Place.
Such a good show.
It's very good. Anyway, I just wanted to, I forget who said it, but that's like the perfect summary of the Tuvix problem, right? You either don't take an action and potentially cause harm to previous things, or like leave harm to previous things, or you take an action and have to now then live with the fact that you made the decision to cause harm.
Yep.
Anyway,
But
that
then
is an actual philosophical problem posed in philosophy classes across the country. Like, that's a real thing.
And the question
and it gets
is,
used in a
across
lot
the
of
world, I should
psychology
say.
studies.
right, because isn't inaction considered an action? It's a choice to not
Right.
act.
That's correct. It absolutely is a choice.
And yeah, the way it gets studied in psychology is like what sort of like emotional response does it provoke, taking the action versus inaction.
Game Spree. Agreed. Game Spree says it's why Voyager and Janeway were amazing. And I agree. I think Janeway and Voyager are a product not only of her captain style, but specifically that captain style paired with the extreme circumstances that they were in, that they get, she's very like by the book Federation captain, but is also diehard, just dead set on getting everyone home. She's very motherly and maternal and very protective, and then also has to make these sort of like intense decisions out in the Delta Quadrant. I wanted to say, by the way, the utter the polarizing comparison being the Equinox, right? Which is like what a Federation ship does if they decide not to go down that route. I think that as far as Voyager and Janeway go, they stayed pretty much as close to by the book as you could, going through
Under
the
the
extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
And get coffee, because there's coffee in that nebula. I also love her because she loves coffee, and I
Me
also
too.
love that. Okay, so
actually, I have a question. Oh, sorry. This just popped into my head. The one thing that I feel like they don't use as much, and maybe this is just because it's on the books as like don't contact him, but maybe couldn't they have called like Q and asked him to if he could possibly create a scenario where Tuvix and Tuvok and Neelix could all exist?
oh come on, if they had any pull with that, they would have just snapped their fingers and had him go home. Like they could have he could have gotten them home, which was teased to them like a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if Janeway had just mated with Q, maybe they would have found themselves back at Earth.
There you go.
Clearly, she should have been mating with Q. I totally agree. He kissed her feet and everything, bro, in a bathtub. I'm just saying, if that's not husband material. Okay, all right. So, the couple of things I just wanted to talk about is Lower Decks when that wrapped up. So you guys all watched the episode. We watched it in Discord this week on Thursday when it aired. We do a stream for that every week. That was the season finale. It was awesome. Did you guys like that episode? I felt like that was like it ended. It is such a peak moment. It was such a great thing with Rutherford. Oh my God, like the details of his stuff finally coming out.
I love that episode. And
Jennifer cried like a baby when all the California classes showed up. Like, no joke. She was like, I'm a mess.
Oh, right, because Jennifer didn't get to watch it.
She watched it today.
So I watched it today right before we started the podcast. And sorry. The one thing I was just the little Easter egg. I was so excited that they had it, that Picard's finances is what's financing the crazy archaeology.
Yeah, because he loved archaeology.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was really good.
When we were watching it and the California classes showed up, I posted, I don't know if you saw this, Merrick. I posted, Merrick, how hard is it for you to be being quiet during Junie's work call right now?
Oh my God, I know. I actually watched it again, by the way, the Lower Decks episode. I watched it again today when she was watching it, just because I was so excited to sort of have that happen again. But it was really, really good. I felt like that was... Oh wait, the female Q played the villain on Power Rangers? What?
She has been in so much.
Susie Plaxton, right?
I love her. She was also a Klingon.
Well, she was. She's Worf's baby mama. Kalar, Ambassador
Kalar. Actually, I believe what she's credited as.
And then she's also
Worf's baby mama.
and she's a Romulan too, right?
Vulcan.
A Vulcan. So she's a Vulcan, the Klingon, and...
Well, and as Falkirk said, I think she was one of the genetically enhanced people that come visit.
No, that wasn't her.
That's not her.
Was it?
That looks... I can see why you would think that, but that's not actually her.
That woman, the genetically enhanced woman, played something else.
Was it really, says Falkirk? Holy crap.
No, but they look so different. That's... Whoa.
I can hear us all Googling it. Right?
We're all Googling. No, that's not.
I don't see Deep Space Nine coming up at all.
No, that's actually not her. It looks like her, but it's not. I don't blame you for thinking it, but it's not. She was Dr. Game Spree, Dr. Solar. She is the Vulcan doctor that goes down to Graves World to diagnose the disease that Data's grandfather has before Data's grandfather steals Data's body. That's the Vulcan. When Data finds his granddaddy. And he's whistling "If I Only Had a Heart" by from the whatever it's called. What's that movie called? There's No Place Like Home.
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of freaking Oz, guys, leave me alone. She also plays, and I forgot her name too, but she was the Andorian lieutenant, like the second in command Andorian in Enterprise, who's like super aggressive. Do you remember her? Anyone remember her name? Susie Plaxton is like an all-star, dude. She's so good.
The woman who played the genetically engineered human also played a Benzite in DS9, apparently, is what I just learned.
No.
Yeah.
What? No. Come on.
It says on
Benzites? Have we seen female Benzites? Oh, no, I guess we have.
Well, she doesn't look particularly male or female in this.
WTF, dude? I did not know that at all.
In the episode The Ship. Which makes me think that she was in like one scene very briefly, because I don't remember Benzite being prominent in that episode.
Oh no, she wasn't. Yeah, she didn't get stranded. She was up in the space. She was in the shuttlecraft and she died. That ship got exploded, right?
It was. Yeah,
that's her.
Apparently,
what? It just blew my freaking Star Trek nerdy mind.
You would have never known it was her.
But. No, that's unreal. Oh yeah, Falkirk says she dies on DS9. What the heck? That's crazy. Game Spree says, and speaking of novels, read Immortal Coil. It ties together all the AIs and androids we've seen in Star Trek TOS through TNG.
Okay, that actually feels like that's worth a read. I want to check
I want to do that. I also, I even have one of the books, but one of my favorite ships, in fact, my favorite Star Trek Online ship, period, literally the main ship on my main character in STO, are the Vestas. And I love the Vestas. It's my favorite ship. The Vesta actually has a very weird place in STO. In case you guys don't know, we're entirely enormous Star Trek Online fans. Star Trek Online has like made every ship from the show into the game and created some ships in the game that have now been seen in the shows. But the Vesta had like weird licensing stuff. And the reason why is because like back when they came out with the ability to 3D print your ship in STO, and in case you guys don't know this, you can. Any ship that you design, any ship that you fly, you can actually get 3D printed, painted, and sent to you through the game, which is awesome. But the Vesta itself was quite unique back when that first came out, and you couldn't do it. It wasn't 3D printable. And it turns out, I had to look this up, turned out that it's because they didn't fully own the license to it. they actually only sort of owned the license to it. They couldn't sell the ship in the 3D printing because it was from the Novelverse. Turns out it's Captain Ezri Dax's ship in a bunch of the novels, which I thought was super awesome, and I'm a big fan of.
Sorry, I just messaged you in the Discord. I'm gonna turn off my
love you, Royal.
Camera for 1 second. I've got someone repeatedly knocking at my door. I got to figure out what's going on.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it's
dude.
10:20. I'll be right back.
Okay, good luck. I don't have your phone number. I don't know how to get you. If
I think you should message us on Discord in case we need to call for assistance.
Falkirk says,
take my Lurpa. Yes, you need to take a Lurpa with you.
That's the long pole-bladed weapon from Amok Time that Vulcans use. We've been watching all month long. We've been binging the Conjuring series.
Oh yeah.
There's like 6 or 7 movies in the Conjuring saga, and so like immediately in my head I'm like, everyone's gonna die. They're all bad. Yeah, dude, Royal. I've never seen them, bro. I never even really heard of them, and I had no concept.
New. They started in 2013, so
and
they're
go
like
all the way to
very
2019, I think.
Or 2020.
Oh, 2021, I think is the
the
new,
last
I don't know,
one.
something very recent. But they're really good, except for La Llorona. I didn't really like that one. But
although
all the other
I
ones are
read
really good.
that one's technically not part of the series because like they didn't have one producer on the show, so it's not really technically like the same team. So they consider it like a total side story.
Oh, dude, Venwick. Yeah, the whip is in game. I love Ferengi, and I really want to make an STO Ferengi captain because they have everything you would ever need. Like all of the cool Ferengi suits and like fashion and captain stuff and the Daemon's uniforms and the ships, all of the ships we've ever seen and a bunch that we haven't seen. They have special functionality like they can use the trading post from anywhere, including in space on their ship because, of course, they have access to the exchange. They are Ferengi. Also, the whip. Even Lex daggers from the Magnificent Ferengi, one of the greatest episodes of all time in Deep Space Nine, where all the Ferengis go and do that sort of heist thing that they do. I think it would be super awesome to make one of those. Yeah, dude, hunting. It is so good, right? Deep Space Nine is one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite show of all time ever. If somebody said, what's your favorite show? That would probably be the answer. And among that show are some of the greatest episodes of anything ever. And I would say that Magnificent Ferengi, top 5 for sure. So good. Lex throwing knives are the best melee weapon in STO. Fight me. I believe you, bro. I do. And you don't even have to buy them. Don't they come from like a story mission? I think you just get them, which is kind of awesome. All right, so while Azure's gone, wait, Azure? He's alive! Azure lives!
Yeah, you're back!
Yeah, it was, I have one of my neighbor's spare keys, and their garage door had something wrong with it, so they needed it to get in.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like somebody trying to attack you.
Not this time.
We've been watching, we were just telling stream, we've been watching the Conjuring movies, and that happens a lot, and usually people die right after that.
I'm kind of glad I didn't hear this before I got up and ran away.
Scary. Okay, so continuing to wrap up, we just did our watch party for the season finale of Lower Decks on Thursday. Totally awesome. And another thing that has just happened is that the first episode of the next half of the season, we just call it the next season, of Star Trek Prodigy just began, and they're going to be releasing episode by episode every Thursday as well. So I'm going to be rewatching all of Prodigy this week, and starting next Thursday in the Discord, we are going to be doing watch parties for Prodigy every week. So in case you guys are keeping track of that, if you want to come watch it with us, it's awesome. We stream it. It's a good time. I hope you guys will come and check that out. Prodigy is an awesome show. I know it may not be everyone's cup of tea. How do you guys feel about Prodigy? Have you seen it? You watch it? You like it? Jennifer? Fan?
Yes. I had to sneeze. I actually really enjoyed Prodigy. When we started watching it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because it didn't really feel quite like. Obviously, it's very different. First of all, it's animated, and it was starting in such a non-Star Trek place.
True.
But oh my gosh, I actually love it, and it surprised me considerably. It's definitely had some value for adults as well, and yeah, I'm actually incredibly looking forward to the next season. I feel like it was the perfect prologue, and now we have like Janeway there, and it's been exciting.
That's a good point. We're in a much better place, much more Star Trek-y, awesome place starting the second season now than we were at the beginning of the first season. What about you, Azure? Did you go into it thinking you were going to like it, thinking you were going to hate it?
So I saw it after you had, I think, finished the first 10 episodes.
I think so.
So I had your recommendation, and I was just coming off your recommendation for Avatar, so I had faith that I would grow to like it.
Faith of the heart?
Damn it, I was going to do it this time for once.
Really? I should have let you do it.
I've just accepted my fate of the heart.
Oh, yes. It's so
no,
good.
it's... so I went into it, the opening was not my cup of tea, and by opening I mean like the first couple episodes, not the whatever the theme is.
What is your cup of tea? Earl Grey hot?
No, I actually had green tea.
Oh,
but
okay.
Also hot because.
All right.
Anyway,
give him a break. He's been
but it grew on me, and it'll never, or at least I mean, we'll see, right? I'm open-minded about it. I don't think it'll ever be like among my favorite Treks, but I think it has some really, really good episodes.
Yeah. Time Amok.
Time Amok is for sure up there as like
So
a great Star Trek episode, not just a great Prodigy episode.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited to see where it goes. I think where they left off, for anyone who hasn't caught up yet, I don't want to spoil it, but for where they left off at the end of episode 10, I'm really excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, I think I'd say that's pretty fair. There's a lot of people that like to compare it to. Somebody said it just now. What is it?
It's Clone Wars.
It's Clone Wars, right?
I mean, the animation style feels similar to me.
It does, because I've seen clips of it. I've never watched an episode.
Clone Wars, but
yeah,
same thing.
I'm just not a Star Wars, like a super Star Wars fan. I went into it, actually, like my little journey of that was very interesting. If you remember, Jennifer, I came into it when I was at the lowest point at my Star Trek life, basically.
Oh, right, because Strange New Worlds wasn't out yet.
That's right. I was feeling very weird about Star Trek because I had been looking forward for 12 years or whatever it is for a new Star Trek. Discovery had kind of disappointed me. I hadn't really gotten around to appreciating it yet. Picard, I felt was really hard. That one hit me pretty hard. And again, we've come to good places in both of these. If you haven't experienced our journey through that, there's an entire podcast about that 2 podcasts ago. I think it's number 5. It was really, really awesome to watch, and we really sort of unpacked that whole journey. But at that time, I was feeling really down about Trek, and I didn't really realize how important Star Trek was to me at that point. Like, it was really hard. I didn't want to watch Lower Decks because I felt like it was just continuing this theme of like not real Trek, just kind of trying to capitalize on the name Star Trek.
How cool was that turnaround, though?
Oh my God, right? I mean, so that just showed how low I was, right? Because now Lower Decks is one of my favorite things that has ever happened. It was really being painted by this sort of like dismay that I was going through. And the same thing was true of Prodigy. I just felt really negative about it all. When Strange New Worlds came back out and became kind of like the hopeful beacon that I felt like Star Trek always has been and should be, it really shined a light on everything, and it made it so I was like, okay, Trek that I know and love is continuing now, and I can feel good about that. And so I went back and rewatched the stuff that I had watched before with new eyes and really kind of liked it. Rewatched Lower Decks, became my favorite thing ever, and then watched Prodigy. And Prodigy, like I think a lot of other people, it was very not Star Trek at first. It was very young at first. But when you go through a few episodes, and by the time you get to the point where Janeway shows up, she's explaining to the kids what the Federation is and how they embody that. It was very hopeful again, which is exactly what I was hoping for. And I got really excited thinking that there could be a new generation of kids, because no doubt, right? Like, I don't have kids. I wish I did. But if I did, we would be sitting there watching this show with them. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a Trekkie and you've got a kid, we know some. Diamond Dax, shout out to Diamond if she's anywhere around. She's watching it with her kid, and it's just so cool to me to think there's a next generation of Star Trek fans out there that are sort of getting the Federation and Star Trek explained to them in such a cool way. Not to mention the fact that by the time it ends, they're a Federation crew, kind of. Like, it really just feels right. I think this next season is going to be awesome. So we'll let you guys know.
The Kobayashi Maru incident.
Oh, that was so
my
good.
Gosh, that was so good.
we could have a whole discussion about that at some point, because Jennifer we had this giant discussion about whether or not that was okay, sort of what they did with the Kobayashi Maru. She was like, how dare you make it so this kid who's like a total dweeb, he's a kid, not even in Starfleet, is able to beat this. I'm like, yeah, but for those of us who are for kids, for modern kids these days, the idea of like go and do this unwinnable test once and it's unbeatable and that's it is unrelatable. Like, it is such a modern trope for kids these days to be like, you know what? Yes, it's practically impossible, but he no-lifes it, right? I mean, it's a video game for him. He's video gaming it, and he does it 500 times in a row. I think they literally say it's hundreds of times.
I get your point, but
you have to let me explain the point to them first before you refute it. They have to know what it is. So
just hear Jennifer ready to.
Well, that's because we've had this debate, so she wants to jump to the end. But the entire thing is that they sat down and did it over and over again, which is no captain has ever done. I think they thought it was weird, right, when Kirk did it twice. They were like, why would you do that? What is wrong with you? 2 or 3 times was insane. This kid does it like 500 times, and he's supposed to do it with a crew of cadets, right? He also gets literally the best the Federation has to offer, doesn't he? He asks the computer, he's like, give me the best people that you've got. And so it's like Odo and Beverly Crusher and Spock and Scotty and like basically like all of the legends ever, right? And then he violates every single rule of the test by basically going in and be like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to try any peaceful options. I'm literally going to show up and eject the warp core at you and detonate it. He basically breaks every rule and gets a bunch of cheating and does it 500 times and then kind of wins, right? So I thought that was kind of okay. So go ahead, Jennifer, tell me why I'm wrong.
I will give you that maybe the program was changed then. That's the only way it can be acceptable, because the program in and of itself was impossible to do. Therefore, there is no option unless you crack the code and change the program, which is what Kirk supposedly did. So fine, then redo canon and have it be that somehow the program was altered so that putting in holograms can have that be something that works.
Yeah, that's the cheat.
But
right?
it is, but it's not. Like, that's the thing. The program shouldn't have allowed that to happen unless he like went in the back end of the code and cracked it.
That's it. She doesn't want him upstaged by like a little 12-year-old purple guy.
There's no way to do it unless you alter the code in the back end. So
alter the code that Jennifer is a developer. I guess you didn't know. It's probably coming out a little bit here. But yeah, I think that it's definitely, my hope is that Prodigy grows with its audience. I think it's probably going to get a little bit more, I don't want to say serious, I guess a little bit more mature as it goes. I wouldn't mind if that's true, but I do really like it. I think it's a good addition to the Star Trek universe. And there's a lot of good things there.
And I don't know if they're in chat at the moment, but Avatar a while back in the Discord, we were talking about liking and disliking things. And I think they may have said it during a stream at one point. But like, it's totally fine if Prodigy isn't for everyone, right? Like, we're not going to judge you if you don't like Prodigy. You shouldn't judge us if we do or we don't or whatever. Like, I love that there's these different avenues for people to get into Trek at the moment. Like, if you want something more serious, go watch Discovery, or like more drama filled, go watch Discovery. If you want, hopeful exploration, go watch Strange New Worlds. If you want like the appeal of like youth and like, I don't even know what else to describe Prodigy as. Like, go watch Prodigy, like a little more
youthful,
lighthearted approach. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what's so great about, like you said, the Trek that's out now. There's so many different options, and you definitely don't have to have all like all of them. I mean, we just watch all of them, and whether we like them or not, we watch them anyway.
That's true.
But yeah, no. I think that's it's good the way it is, because it does kind of allow almost anyone to enter the franchise.
I also love what Venwick said. He says Lower Decks is becoming my favorite show now, and I think that Lower Decks. I think that Lower Decks is a perfect example of a show that's sort of growing as it goes. I think, and I sort of explained this at the end of the last watch party, that Lower Decks starts very comedic and very lighthearted. It's not willing to really get serious, but the episodes are very short. It's animated. They kind of had to be poke fun at everything constantly in the beginning, get you to know the characters. And now that you do, and I even heard an interview about this, that this is actually true, that, now that they've gotten people used to the characters, they know them, they like them, that gives them the opportunity to tell more stories, like more nuanced or dramatic stories. And they have been. That's been a trend. It's been actually getting more dramatic as it goes. Not to say that the comedy isn't there, but I think it's a better show. It's a more nuanced show. It's a little bit more in depth. It's more mature. I think that it's just going to continue. I think that they found a way, like a good harmony of making us laugh, poking fun at the memes, but then also sitting within canon and giving us some cool things. I freaking loved going back to Ornara and Brekka. What the heck was that? That was so cool. Like the addiction episode from TNG. Like it is a meme, but Second Contact, like the meme of that, the entire thing about like going back and doing Second Contact or swing by missions or whatever, it allows them to go back and check on things that we haven't seen, like these one-off episodes where I always wondered what happened to Brekka and Ornara, didn't you? Every time you watch that, you're like, God, I wonder what ends up happening.
Yeah, I even love that they like summarize it, like, oh yeah, and then Picard just left.
And then they just left, which they sort of tease them about because they maybe should have come back and checked. But the Prime Directive really says, they were not Federation citizens. They were on the fringe.
Like they didn't need to come back and check because what were you going to do?
Exactly that. And by the way, we discussed this on the podcast and I went back and rewatched it. So the way that it did work was they were on a ship that as they were going, you remember we had a little debate about this.
We didn't know for sure.
We couldn't remember for sure. So they were on the way from Ornara to Brekka, or from Brekka to Ornara, and they had the Felicium already, and they were breaking apart. There were solar flares, and they were going to be destroyed. And so they were like, oh, what's wrong with you? Oh, you don't know what's wrong with you? That's weird. And then they finally diagnosed it. They said, you need this part. They said, oh, great. Do you have anyone that can install it? They're like, you don't know how to install it? And so they weren't sure what to do. And they fumbled around so much that they were like, okay, there's no time to repair this ship, which we could have done otherwise. We're going to beam you off. So they beamed everyone off, including the Felicium. And that ship was destroyed. At the end, they said that they wanted that part so that they could continue this relationship back and forth. And that was when Jean-Luc Picard said, no, the Prime Directive now prohibits me from giving that to you. You're screwed. But what they ended up saying at the end was that they had 2 ships left. And they were they were in disrepair and that they were going to break eventually. So it wasn't that they were cut off at that moment. That wasn't the case. They had 2 remaining ships, but they had like a lifespan, like a limited lifespan left.
Well, I believe that puts you closer to the truth if I'm remembering our podcast about this correctly. Because I think I was the one arguing that they were done right then.
Yeah, there was some amount of time between then and afterwards, because otherwise the 2 Brekkians were actually like stranded on Ornara, which is how that sort of would have gone down. But they just had 2 left, and it was going to be broken. So by the time Lower Decks comes around, I mean, it's only been like 10 years or so, I think, since that episode. So a lot happened. But I guess it doesn't take 10 years to get over an addiction, even to Felicium. So I guess
but now they're addicted to fitness.
Addicted to fitness.
That's a great addiction to have.
Torreston, thank you for the follow, man. Welcome to the stream. I think we'll probably wrap it up here. Do you guys feel good about the podcast?
This is a good podcast.
Right here.
Yeah. We did not get to all the topics.
Question.
Which, by the way, was probably my favorite thing that we discussed today. That was that is one of those things that made us make this podcast in the first place, is that Azure and Jennifer and I would like hang out at the end of playing a video game. We play games in a different Discord, and we would start talking about Star Trek, and we would be up until like 3:00 in the morning having debates about transporters or Tuvix or whatever, and have really awesome nuanced discussions that eventually were like, man, like,
what if
I would like to listen to this? Yeah, I would like to listen to this if it was someone else. So like, we should maybe do a podcast. So thank you guys for contributing. Please, if you have not already, come join us in the Discord. Type !ST Discord in the chat, or join us at discord.gg/Star Trek Night Shift. It's where we coordinate what we stream, when we stream it, who we stream it with. And it's a great place for you to interact about Star Trek, get the latest news, post memes, and of course, maybe even suggest crazy topics for us to discuss on the podcast. So hopefully we'll get some more of that stuff soon. We are the Star Trek Night Shift. We do this every Thursday where we stream STO Let's Plays, and of course do the watch parties on Thursday, and then the podcast on Saturday. We said it before, but if you guys are on YouTube right now, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate that. Make sure to follow, subscribe, subscribe, and comment down below. It's really helpful. Really appreciate that. And I guess that's it. Big thanks to Star Trek Online. As always, we always come into STO. We're usually at the floor 47 mezzanine, but we're in the cat's tail. today.
Spooky.
Cat's paw?
Well, the episode's called Cat's Tail.
Oh, okay. Wait, what?
It is. It's
in STO.
in STO.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. The
Oh,
episode
wow.
is
I
Cat's
didn't
Paw.
actually notice that.
Yeah, but it's TALE. So,
Right.
Cheeky.
Clever.
Very clever. Thank you guys for supporting us and coming and chatting with us in chat. We really appreciate that. Saturday night at 9:30 p.m. EDT. So if you guys are watching this later and you want to be part of the live stream, it's on twitch.tv/Merrick TV. Hopefully we'll see you then. But until next time, big thanks again to my co-host, Science Officer Azure, and of course, Chief Jennifer. We love you all. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.